The neighborhood looked like it had been airbrushed into place, everything pristine. Lawns trimmed within regulation height, porches swept, shutters painted in colors approved by HOA committees. It was the kind of place where people waved before they even recognized who you were. Safety wasn't just a feeling, it was an aesthetic. A charcoal Lexus slid slowly through one of the curved streets, its engine nearly inaudible. Behind the wheel, Harold Delmont adjusted the collar of his coat, the sunlight briefly catching the silver strands at his temple. His expression was unreadable, still composed, like a judge about to deliver a sentence. In his lap sat a thick manila file stamped with bold red letters, Judicial Review. Delmont's left hand stayed steady on the wheel, while his right rested over the folder, not protectively, just firmly as if to remind himself of who he was. As he approached a stop sign, he slowed and let two children cross. The scene was picture perfect, until it wasn't. A black and white cruiser crawled into the rearview mirror. No lights, no siren, just a low creeping hum. It didn't pass. It didn't turn. It followed. Delmont didn't need a mirror to know he was being watched. He could feel it. The kind of scrutiny that didn't ask questions. It made assumptions. Seconds later, red and blue lights flared behind him. He didn't flinch. He didn't sigh. He didn't even speak. He just pulled to the curb and lowered the window. Footsteps approached. Officer Drew Kessler wasn't in a hurry. He didn't need to be. He was used to people being nervous around him, used to controlling conversations before they started. His sunglasses reflected nothing but power, and his grip on the belt holster was casual, but visible. "Afternoon," he said, his voice clipped. "We've had reports of a suspicious vehicle in the area. You circling?" Delmont turned his head slowly, looked up with a gaze that had once made senators pause. "Circling?" he asked, tone even. "No resident tag, no delivery sign, no children. Just an older man in a luxury car, driving slow through a neighborhood where nobody seems to recognize you." Kessler's words weren't accusatory. They were assumptive. The difference was thin, but dangerous. "I'd like to see license and registration, sir." Delmont didn't move quickly or slowly. He moved like time belonged to him. He opened his wallet, produced the documents, and added one more card to the stack, a government ID, tucked between the folds like an afterthought. The badge shone, quiet and bold. Kessler looked at the license, ignored the ID. "You from around here?" "I'm here on court business," Delmont said. "There are people in this neighborhood I speak with from time to time, and mail that sometimes requires a signature. You'll need to step out of the vehicle." "For what reason?" "You match a report." "What report?" "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Delmont opened the door. The air felt heavier now. Delmont stood beside the car, back straight, hands loosely at his sides. He wasn't tall, and he didn't need to be. His presence filled the space between them with something unspoken, but unmistakable. Kessler's eyes darted across his coat, his hands, his expression. He saw calm. He saw dignity, and he didn't know what to do with it. He stepped closer. "Do you have anything in your pockets?" "Just the truth," Delmont said, "though I'm beginning to wonder if that's enough today." Kessler didn't respond. He reached toward Delmont's jacket, tugging gently at the front pocket. Delmont didn't stop him. "I have the right to search," Kessler said, not sure if he believed it himself. "You have the power," Delmont said. "But that's not the same thing." Kessler paused. A beat of silence stretched between them like a wire pulled tight. Then he saw it. The ID badge, this time clearly, not tucked away, not subtle. He read the words, U.S. Supreme Court, Associate Justice. His mouth opened slightly, then closed, then opened again. No apology came, just the quiet sound of his own heart pounding, realizing who he had detained. Kessler stepped back. "Wait here," he muttered, retreating toward the cruiser. Delmont remained by the curb, unmoving. The scene had no witnesses, but it didn't need any. The weight of the mistake already echoed down the street. Inside the patrol car, Kessler stared at the documents, lips tight. What had begun as routine control now felt like exposure, not just of his assumptions, but of the system that gave them breath. Delmont looked toward the sidewalk. A delivery truck passed slowly. A woman with a stroller glanced his way, unaware of the courtroom playing out in silence beside her. There were no cameras. No press, no viral videos, just two men. One with a badge, one with the law in his hands. and the knowledge that this moment would stay with them long after the sun set. Delmont didn't speak again. He didn't need to. The badge had already done all the talking. Kessler never handed the license back. He left it on the dash and returned to the cruiser. He didn't speak. Didn't make eye contact. Didn't ask for forgiveness. Delmont walked back to the Lexus, opened the door, and paused. His hand rested on the steering wheel for a long second before he sat. The manila folder still lay across the passenger seat. As the engine turned over, the patrol car didn't follow. It stayed in place, lights off now, presence diminished. Delmont drove away slowly, the same way he came. Nothing rushed. Nothing dramatic. But in that neighborhood behind those manicured lawns and double-locked doors, something had changed. Not loudly, not obviously, but deeply, because someone would eventually ask, why was he stopped? And the answer would be too uncomfortable to ignore. He looked like he didn't belong, even though he helped write the laws that decided who did. The badge wasn't just proof of who he was. It was a mirror, and when Kessler looked into it, he didn't see justice, he saw himself. That evening, as the sky dimmed and the houses turned their porch lights on one by one, a few neighbors recalled hearing sirens, though there hadn't been any. Memory has a way of adding noise where there was only quiet discomfort. Inside one home, a man scrolled the local neighborhood app and typed up a vague post. Suspicious incident on Juniper Lane. Anyone know what happened? It would receive no replies. Just a few likes, a couple of eye emojis, one comment, saw a black Lexus earlier, maybe related. No one would mention the badge. No one would mention the look on Officer Kessler's face as he walked back to his car, holding a Supreme Court justice's ID in his hands like it was radioactive. At the precinct, Kessler filed no report. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitating. He closed the case with a generic label. Routine stop. No action taken. But his mind replayed the words over and over. You have the power, but that's not the same thing. Delmont, meanwhile, returned to his quiet hotel room just outside D.C. He placed the judicial folder back into his briefcase. The badge, still warm from the sun, slid gently back into its slot inside his wallet. He didn't tell anyone about the stop, not because it wasn't worth telling, but because it was just one of many, just another reminder that no title, not even justice, could fully armor a man against the judgment passed in a glance. He opened his laptop, resumed editing a memo for the court. One line stood out. Equal protection under the law shall not be subject to interpretation based on appearance. He underlined it twice, then kept typing. The next morning, nothing made headlines. No one was fired. No internal investigation launched. The city's dashboard report listed 0 complaints from the prior day. Another 24 hours logged without incident. But inside the courthouse, 3 blocks from the Capitol, Justice Harold Delmont moved differently. Not slower, not uncertain, just quieter, as if something within him had added weight to each step. Not bitterness, not regret, something else. Something like resolve. His clerk noticed it when Delmont entered chambers. No brief greeting, no casual remarks. He simply opened the folder marked Judicial Review, pulled out a blank memo sheet, and began to write. When power assumes, it forgets. When power fears, it reaches. When power is unchecked, it humiliates. He stared at the line for a moment, then underlined the last word. Humiliates. He wasn't writing a ruling. He was building a reminder, not just for law students or fellow judges, but for himself. That silence was sometimes not neutrality, that dignity could be used against you, and that even the highest seat in the court couldn't shield you from being treated like a threat in your own country. Later that afternoon, during a scheduled judiciary roundtable, Delmont declined to take the podium. Instead, he passed his remarks to another judge, folded in his signature red file. The moderator opened it to find the words he'd written that morning. Simple, sharp, enough to turn the air in the room heavy. If your authority depends on who you think I am, then you never had it. No applause followed. Just silence. Some would later say it was the most powerful statement delivered all year, and it wasn't even spoken aloud. It started small, like all stories that no one expects to matter. 3 days after the stop, a local college student posted on a discussion forum, "My professor told us something wild. Her neighbor was stopped by a cop for circling the neighborhood. Turns out he's a Supreme Court justice. It got a few laughs, a few likes, no traction, but someone screenshot the post. Someone who recognized the last name, Delmont. Within 24 hours, the post had migrated to a legal subreddit. Then a political Twitter thread. Then a progressive newsletter. Within 3 days, a quote appeared on a trending tweet. The man who writes the law was treated like a suspect because of how he looked behind the wheel. It had 43,000 retweets in less than 6 hours. Media outlets picked up the scent. But Delmont refused to comment. He issued no statements, gave no interviews. When approached by reporters outside the courthouse, he only offered a steady glance and a single sentence. The law will speak where I will not. But silence, in moments like this, only amplifies the echo. Within the week, the patrol officer's name was trending. Think pieces, reaction videos, calls for policy reform. Some called for his badge. Others defended the stop. The country once again stood split, not by facts, but by feelings. What remained undeniable was this: a Supreme Court justice had been profiled, and no one could agree whether it should matter more or less because of who he was. At a university town hall days later, a young black student stood during the Q&A and asked, "If even a Supreme Court justice can't avoid this, what hope do the rest of us have?" The room fell silent. In another city, a mother told her teenage son the story over breakfast. "That's why you always keep your hands visible," she said. "Even if you've done nothing wrong." Some schools held discussions. Others ignored it. Churches spoke about it. News anchors spun it. Politicians posted about it, carefully, as if their words were walking across glass. But for those who truly felt the weight, no speech could erase the truth. Justice isn't just written. It's lived or denied in moments, and every stop, every glance, every pause is a reflection of the system we pretend is blind. Weeks passed. The news cycle moved on, but in Justice Delmont's chamber, the memory hadn't faded. His red folder now had a new sheet inside. Just one line, handwritten and taped to the inside cover. "This bench means nothing if the sidewalk doesn't." One morning, before a closed session, he met privately with a group of law students visiting from across the country. He didn't plan to speak of it, but something changed. He looked at them, young, brilliant, hopeful, maybe even naive, and he said, "There will be days where the robe won't protect you, days where your voice won't carry, days where you are not seen. Remember who you are and why you're here." He paused. "Because law is not what's written. It's what's felt when no one's watching." The students leaned in. A few took notes. Most just sat, silent, absorbing. He looked at them, nodded once, and opened the door to the courtroom, where the world is always weighted.